Hi everyone, I'm Kayla Jetzi and I'm from iDesign Learning, and we're really excited today to present a special series event, and it's called Faculty Certification as a Hero's Journey. We have Heidi from the University of California, Irvine, and Marilyn from the University of Laverne, and they're gonna take it away.
All right, so as Kayla mentioned, this is the Faculty Certification as a Hero's Journey, a faculty empowerment approach to faculty certification. And I'm Heidi Beasley from the University of California, Irvine, and
I'm Marilyn Mejia from the University of Laverne.
And there are three main topics that we want to cover in today's presentation. So first, we want to talk about sort of the influences, like what we were trying to accomplish with our faculty certification, the kind of journey we wanted them to have with us. And then we want to talk about the hero's journey archetype and why it makes for a very nice narrative structure to use in an online course. And then in particular, we want to talk about how we applied that narrative to our faculty certification and why we thought it was so successful. So first, the faculty's journey with us. We already had a certification at the University of Laverne, which is where we developed this online certification. And it was somewhat well received, but it was also, there were some frustrations with it. And they came from not recognizing that every course and faculty member is different. So there were a set of one-size-fits-all modules that walked faculty through creating certain things in their course. But what faculty mentioned is that, sometimes I already knew what we were being taught, and so it was frustrating. Or they said, what they were asking me to do in the certification, it didn't really match with what I want to do. And so I didn't want to create that in my course. And so recognizing that, for example, every faculty member is different with regard to the content that they teach, their personality, their teaching style, their passions, their perspective on learning and teaching, their previous experience with doing those things, their comfort with technology, and even their motivators. Like, this patchwork of difference is something we wanted to take into account as we developed a new faculty certification that we hoped would meet faculty where they are and usher them through the next phase of their journey. Something else that we wanted to take into account with the course we developed is that a lot of courses tend to have a particular stance on knowledge and where it is located, and where is the expertise on the topic at hand. And so most commonly, courses are designed with this idea that the faculty member or the instructor and maybe the texts and readings, these are the source of knowledge, and that the idea is to share that knowledge with everyone else who is participating in the course. This is sort of a centralized approach to knowledge. And we didn't want to take that approach because although Marilyn and I are experts in this, we also recognize the expertise in the people who were coming to the certification, that they've been teachers, they've been learners, and so they have something to bring to the table. And a second approach that still didn't quite meet what we wanted to do was understanding knowledge as being somewhat decentralized, where we're still sort of the experts as hub at the center, and then there are some areas of expertise in the participants. Instead, we wanted to take an approach to the course that recognized that at any moment, any one of us might be teachers, and at any moment, any one of us might be learners, and there might be this really rich set of connections that we would develop in the course. So that was the kind of course that we wanted to develop. And then lastly, the other pieces of the puzzle that we wanted to build into the course that we were developing is to make it very personal. That the more that we could make the experience that faculty members had be something that they're always working from what they wanted to do, what they were doing with their course from their own perspective, the better. And that meant that by default, we were going to need to have multiple pathways through the course. And it's not just that there's a limited amount of choice. I think with the course we made, there's almost unlimited choice, so many ways through the course. And so everyone could have a very different experience, but still walk away with something very important and meaningful to them. Also, we wanted to have the course have an expeditionary flavor, which meant that it wasn't that we would provide things to them that they would passively learn and repeat back to us, but that they were exploring along with us. We were all fellow travelers just trying to learn more about teaching and learning online and what works and what doesn't. And so that was the spirit of what we wanted to do. and that was always driven by a set of questions or problems that we were exploring at any moment. And we also wanted to have a course that was messy. Like, we didn't want the answers to the problems to be easy. We didn't even want to assume that we would have answers by the end of the course. At best, we wanted to see it as we'd all have provisional answers. So if we were trying to figure out how to support group work, we'd have some idea, but we'd know there's more for us to learn. And so we might have unanswered questions, and that's okay. That it wasn't something where we would walk away with like, yes, I've got it. I now have the 50 things I need to do in my course and I'm ready to go. It's just too complex and too rich of a topic for any one of us to have some set of answers at the end of the course. We also wanted to create an environment that was very supportive, that we would support the faculty going through the process, but also they would support each other and therefore create this community of practice where they would get to know the other faculty who are teaching online at the University of La Verne, and that those would be people they could draw on for support and ideas and to use as sounding boards going forward even after the course is over. And then lastly, a big part of what we wanted to do was have the experience be very metacognitive for the faculty so that they're reflecting constantly on what they know already, what they're learning, what they're hearing from their peers, and by the end sort of distilling all of what they learned into an action plan. So this is what we knew we wanted to do. And to kind of sum up, we knew the faculty were coming in, that we had this slice of in this faculty certification, and that we hoped that would be transformative. But we weren't worried about it being transformative in any specific set of ways, that we were okay with it having be something that they were self-directed. Because faculty, like one assumption we felt comfortable making about faculty is that they're intellectually curious and they're good at independent learning. And that by the end, we hoped that they would come away with certain knowledge, some skills, new perspectives on their students, new perspectives on online teaching and learning, and also have had some experiences that then enhance what they do going forward, but that those things that they take with them could be different for everyone. And that's okay. And in fact, that's probably preferable, that everyone would come out with a totally different set of ideas about what they were going to do. But what we hoped sort of unified the experience for everyone is that they would develop some empathy for students and the student experiences, recognizing the challenges that students face when going and their technical challenges. We wanted them to all walk away with at least one peer, maybe more, that they could feel like would be a part of their community, that they could talk with and share ideas with going forward. And even if that peer was us, that was okay. We wanted them to see that community developing. We wanted them to have a spirit of exploration about online teaching and feel comfortable trying new things, even knowing that maybe it's not going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot. And that sort of implied also that they would commit to iterating their courses over time. And lastly, that we really wanted them to come out of the course feeling empowered. And we thought if we can get everyone to experience some amount of these 5 things, that would be pretty exciting. And I should say that because of the way that La Verne is set up, faculty didn't have to develop their courses alone. So what we wanted them to do was to really just think big about what's possible and be excited to try things and know that we would be there to support them, whatever they were going to do. So a couple of years ago, I went to an OLC conference where 3 amazing ladies shared how they were using the hero's journey to create a narrative structure for some of their student courses. And as I listened to them, I thought, A, this is amazing, and B, I thought, I really want to figure out a way to use this. So when Marilyn and I got this faculty certification course, based on what we were wanting to achieve with it, it felt like a really good fit. So if you're not familiar with the Hero's Journey archetype, I want to provide a short overview of that, but this is derived from Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces book, where he studied myths and stories from around the world and saw that there was a pattern in how the stories were structured. And that narrative structure is this monomyth, the hero's journey.
So now I would like to turn to talking about the hero's journey archetype and talk about why it is a useful narrative structure for creating an online course and why it seemed like a good fit for what we wanted to do with faculty certification. So Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces is the book where this idea is derived from. He studied myths from all over the world and found that they had a similar structure. And so in that structure, the hero always begins in the ordinary world, and then at some point passes through a special world. And that special world is where the exciting crux of the story is happening, and in some way that hero is changed. So to begin with, the hero always is in their normal life, the status quo. And to help illustrate the structure of this narrative, I'm going to use Moana, because I've seen this movie so many times. And just recognize the same structure is also just as applicable to Walter White from Breaking Bad, or Black Panther, or Frodo from The Lord of the Rings, or Rey from Star Wars. Really any story with a hero or anti-hero will follow this kind of structure. So Moana begins on the island of Motunui. She lives there with her family and her community. She is being groomed to be the next leader for her family and community. She experiences a call to adventure. And she heard this call early on as a young baby, to this call of the ocean, but it becomes more acute and the island begins to experience hardship. So the coconuts are coming up rotten. They're not finding fish in the reef. And she feels like what she needs to do is move beyond the borders of their island and go out into the ocean and find the answer to this problem. In the hero's journey, the next step is to find assistance. So you can think of Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings as a similar character to Moana's grandmother, who shows Moana the history of her culture, shows her where these ships are that are seafaring ships that will allow her to travel beyond the boundaries that she has known before. So she leaves on this journey to try to, and what she has to do is return this jewel to Te Fiti, the island goddess, to restore order to the world. But on this journey, she begins to encounter these trials. She has to bring Maui to help her and convince him to help her. The two of them also experience hardships of various kinds. Ultimately, though, what they need to do is face Te Kā, the lava monster. And so they make the approach to Te Kā and prepare themselves for battle. But then they experience crisis when Moana makes a capricious decision that ends up injuring Maui, and Maui abandons her. But at some point, they reunite. They defeat Te Kā by realizing that Te Kā is actually Te Fiti, and by giving Te Kā this jewel, order will be restored not just with Te Kā, but with the rest of the world. And this is the peace that they had been seeking, which is the result. Then Moana returns to her island home, where she brings back these new skills. She now is a wayfinder. She can help her family and her culture regain their history and become ocean travelers again, which is the new resolution, which then results in a new status quo for both her and for people that she lives with. So that's the basic structure. And it's one of empowerment, and that by the end of a hero's journey, like we said, the core idea is you come back with superpowers, with some new ability that you didn't have before. And that matched very well with what we wanted to do. So that is why we wanted to structure our course to be patterned after this hero's journey. But in terms of the other reasons that we did it, this kind of narrative structure employs a lot of strategies that the brain is already used to. It allows us to make personal meaning from this structure in the course that helps provide a context. It tells us where we are in the learning cycle. It lets us understand what's happening at any moment. At the beginning of the hero's journey, we are recognizing there's a challenge that we need to face, and that we need to find a resolution. And this structure is so familiar to us that it immediately situates us in our learning. And it also provides this mental model, these hooks for us to build on as we move through the course. And from the affective side, it provides motivation, because we see ourselves as being on this journey, feeling like we are gaining something by the end, that there's actually a trajectory to what we're doing, rather than just going through some set of motions. So going back to the faculty members and what we were hoping to do, we see this slice of time, that faculty certification as this transformative journey, and that itself is structured after this hero's journey. But beyond that, we want faculty to even think of themselves differently and what they're doing after the course differently, and think of that as yet another hero's journey, where as they begin to teach online, they're going to face trials, they're going to experience crisis, but that hopefully they will find ways to address these things and then find treasure themselves, the reward of knowing that they are connecting with their students, that they are seeing these tangible results of learning and can take pride in what they've done, and therefore develop a new status quo. And so that's another part of why it felt like, as I said, it didn't only frame what we were doing during the slice of time, but we hoped would transfer to them seeing themselves as heroes in their own journey after the course. So now, how did this all translate into the faculty certification? Well, the course structure was set up with 6 learning modules that were called quests, and they culminated in a final adventure, also known as the Return with the Elixir, where we distilled all of what they learned into what are their superpowers that they will walk away with. And those 6 module quests were organized around key questions. How will you welcome students and prepare them for success in your online course? How will you support a thriving learning community? How will you support learning and learning activities? How will you provide meaningful and timely feedback? How will you monitor and encourage progress? And how will you close your course? And Marilyn, this last one, what was your impression of this one with faculty?
So it seemed like that was one of the biggest takeaways everyone had, was how to close out their course. And even really seasoned professors didn't actually really think about that before they did this in a lot of cases. And they were really surprised at themselves that it had never occurred to them that if you have an introduction, you should probably have a closing. And it inspired a lot of people to either make videos or address individuals with their own progress and talk about what the key takeaways were from the course.
Yeah, and this was like one of those things that was, I mean, I don't know if it was totally surprising that faculty really got excited about this last module, but they were like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense that, there's something we were supposed to accomplish in this course, and why don't we recognize it and call it out and then also connect it to their future journey, which is what so many of them did. And I think having this structure really helped to frame that for them and see the importance of that kind of closure. Okay, so then within each quest module, there were 4 spots that they walked through. There was the Hear the Call, where they were presented with this critical question they were exploring, charting a course where they commit to a solution path. And we felt like this was really important to ask them before they go on their journey to commit to, like, this is what I want to achieve, because we wanted them to think about how successful the journey was. And we wanted them to say, look, this actually was terrible. Like, I didn't find any of the answers I was looking for. Or, oh my gosh, I found such great ideas beyond what I was expecting. Or, oh my gosh, I found exactly what I was looking for. So we wanted them to be able to gauge how successful the journey was, and let them also be accepting of some journeys are going to be duds. And let's talk about why it was, and see if we can find the help that you didn't find on that journey in our community as we talk it through. So then they go on the trek and explore whatever path they chose. And lastly, which was always the most powerful part of the module, when they shared their discoveries with each other and swap the solution insights. So Marilyn was so amazing in developing the Hear the Call section of the course and creating these beautiful videos that really set the stage for each module. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, when we first started, we really wanted to have a motivating factor that really showed faculty why this mattered and why taking the certification course was worth their time. So we decided to go with video. And we really wanted to showcase a couple of different things in that. We wanted to have a reminder of things that they might have not thought of in the pedagogy and design. And then we also wanted to awaken an empathy in them. So when we designed this course, and Heidi already talked about having those motivating factors and making it personal. So one way that we did that was interviewing students, and we had these amazing student testimonials talking about what worked and what didn't in their online courses. And these were students that go to our university. So it made sense that professors had a strong reaction to that, because they were hearing maybe for the first time things that worked for students and things that didn't, things that made it harder for students and stressed them out, and things that made them so happy that they wanted to learn more from a professor. So it really did work the way we wanted it to, in awakening empathy for students and really seeing things from their perspective when you're designing your own courses. And then we would end the videos with pointing them to their quest and asking them, what do you want the outcome of your quest to be? So that going into the modules, they would think about those and then go backwards from there. And how can I accomplish my goals in whatever I'm doing inside of those modules? So we do have a video. This was the first one. So Heidi already talked about the different questions. This one was about how to welcome and prepare students for learning effectively. And we'll show you that video now.
Welcome to your first Leo course quest. For this quest, we'll consider how students will be welcomed to your course. The key question for this quest is, how will you welcome students and prepare them for success in your online course?
Before we go into the details of the quest, let's hear from some Laverne students.
We asked for them to share their experiences at the start of a term.
So at the start of a term, what I noticed with some of the professors that was really, really helpful was that they would ask you about where you worked and kind of get a sense of some of the responsibilities that you have at home.
Some professors I've noticed they'll leave like a paragraph of who they are, what the class needs to be, like what the requirements need to be done to get an A or B or C. And I noticed that that's very helpful, kind of gives me motivation to get that A or B or C.
I think my professors have done a really, really good job on getting all of us acclimated to their system, their grading. They send out all the documents that are needed, thankfully. So I've had really positive experiences.
They're just right out the gate, even previous to starting the term, they're welcoming everyone. They're saying, here's an opportunity to get to know one another, knowing that you're, probably in finals or, you have other things going on. But when you have an opportunity, go out there and just let's meet each other.
With some of the professors, they'll allow you 2 days to kind of get familiar with the structure of the system. Not necessarily the portal, but more like where some of the information that they've uploaded for you is.
Yeah, there have been some times where I've had some struggle. I had to, search around a little bit, maybe ask a classmate if they've seen this particular assignment or document that I'm looking for. But I think that's more so just me just having to take the time to really go through the online classroom and figuring out. I don't think that's an indictment of them.
One thing that I find that I'm not able to view the classmate roster and see how many other students are in the class. So am I the only one? I don't know.
I found that with the professors that allowed a day or two, it was easier to stay on top of the deadlines because I knew where some of the information was. With the other professors where it was like, just jump right in, this is already due, it was a little harder. So it was a little more stressful when I had to do that versus when I had like a day or two to just look around and make sure I knew where everything was.
I wish it would just be easier to click, there's homework, that's what you have to do. And just give it a little instructions on where to find everything.
It's just that communication, and communication is key. And a lot of the professors who I do see the successful terms and courses, they have that communication out the gate.
Our students have shared some of their experiences with the start of a new term. Now, let's hear the call to adventure for this quest. Adventure awaits.
The question we'd like for you to consider is, how will you welcome students and prepare them for success in your online course? The first experiences students have when they enter a course set the tone for them and for their interactions with you.
When students enter your course for the first time, they bring with them a set of emotions. They may be eager to get started. They may be afraid they will do poorly. They may be struggling with concerns unrelated to your course. How does your course greet these students and help them become ready to learn?
Think about how you want students to feel. Do you want students to feel warm and a sense of connection? Do you want students to feel energized and excited? Do you want them to feel supported and prepared for what lies ahead? Whether you already have an effective way to welcome students or are just getting started with online teaching, we'd like for you to consider ways to structure the initial experiences students have in your course so that those experiences align with your hopes and expectations for how your course will situate them for learning. Remember, the goal of this module is to look for opportunities to enhance your course design so that students feel reassured and prepared for a successful journey through your course. So, how will you welcome students and prepare them for success in your online course? This is your quest.
Okay, so once students saw that video, or once faculty saw that video, the next phase was for them to chart their course. And so in doing that, we gave them a map, and it was made with Storyline. And let me see if I can show one to you. So basically the map looks like this. They come in, and their goal is first to review what are some of the topics that I can explore in this leg of our journey together. So welcoming students, we could look at how can Blackboard help, which is what we use at Laverne, figuring out how to prepare a course for launch, establishing community norms, talking about how this course works. I'm going to come back to this one because it's sort of a special one that was in all of them. The unique icebreakers that maybe would help them get to know each other, or other ways to get to know the students, structuring their first communications to really make the course live up to whatever they imagine it will do, like how to establish the kind of community they want, or to set the stage for learning in the way that they want. And then also so many courses use groups, so we wanted to have a way for them to welcome and start group work early on in order to help form teams early. Excuse me. The last one, pedagogical problem solving, was in every single module. And the idea here was that like your choose your own adventure. If you have something, if you've had some experience teaching online, but there's this one thing that never works out and you want to explore that, and it's not something that we identified, that's what we wanted. We wanted a spot where they could choose their own adventure with regard, but it still had to relate to the topic at hand, but as long as it did, we welcome people to chart their own course. And then lastly, there were just some indicators, like the Sunshine one is for anyone new to online. We recommended those. The Star one are some of the other recommended ones for people who've taught online. But let's say that I choose these two here. Let me choose one more. Then I've plotted what I'm going to do. When I click here, it's going to remind me, okay, go back to Blackboard now and just tell us what you're going to do and why. And what we wanted faculty to do is say, here's what I'm doing, here's what I hope to get out of it, and now go on your journey. So once they've submitted their chart, their course, they go on and track. So the place marks turn into something that is trackable, where they can find out information, like they can click to find out information about icebreakers with a prompt for them to create an activity in their course if they want to, or to look at some of the unique tools that might help with this part of their course. And then when they're finished, it takes them back to the map, marking that as complete, and then they can explore the other things. But all that, and all of the modules sort of had that structure. The map looks different in each module, but basically there were some recommended things for them to explore, but it was completely up to them what they thought they needed the most help with, which we liked. But what was especially cool was how it closed out. So each module ended with a discussion where faculty shared their discoveries. And what was amazing about that is they shared their quest takeaways, but then they read what each other had written. So even if they didn't explore a certain topic, they would see what other people had done and go, oh my gosh, that is so cool. I didn't explore that topic, but yeah, I want to do that too. And they learned from peer practice too. So people would talk about what they'd already been doing and things that worked for them or things they'd heard about. And so those would come out in discussions too. And so everyone became both teacher and learner in these discussions. And they supported each other. They would make recommendations. And then the other thing that I thought was really cool was that we identified lingering inquiry and needs, things that were still unanswered, or things that just we didn't find the answer that we were looking for, still don't feel like we have a handle on it. And so people would try to help each other with that too. So that was the module structure. Oh, and then the most important takeaway is they got to know one another really well. And the camaraderie that developed was kind of cool. They would cheer each other on, and when people would share, oh, I made this video, what do you think? It's my first time. Like, people would be like, oh, no, that's great. So it was fun. But then the final adventure was the part that really tied it together. So we're going back to this narrative of the hero's journey. This is on your way back to the regular world. And you kind of have to think about all that happened and what does it mean, and Return with the Elixir is about like distilling all of it into like, what is it I'm going to do different? How will I be different as a result of this journey? And so what we had faculty do is complete an action plan. And let me click on this and open up a real example. Okay, this is our sample one. It's not really a real example, but it's a full document. And so what we asked them to do is identify at least 5 things that they will do, either that they've already done, and explain why they think it's going to have an impact on either their experience of teaching online or their students. Are there things that they're committed to doing before or during the next term that they haven't done before? Or do they have long-term goals that they want to do, but they don't feel ready to, but they know they want to sometime, but they can't take it on before the next term. And so they committed to those things. And then the very last thing is we asked them to identify who could help. Are there faculty who are in the course who could help? Or can we help as instructional designers? And so this was also a very rewarding part of the course for us as we read where people came from, like where they ended up, because it was tremendous. Like, reading their action plans was actually really gratifying. Okay, so like that's basically the story of the course and how we set it up. And you know, we really found that it did achieve the outcomes that we wanted, of creating empathy, of having faculty feel empowered, creating that community of practice. And so, you know, long ago, like I said, I went to this conference and I heard the call from these 3 lovely ladies who shared their story. And we hope that by hearing our story, maybe it will inspire you to try using this narrative, maybe in faculty certification or anything else. And like, guarantee you will face trials as we did in crisis. But I know we felt like we found the treasure in the experience of online, and we hope if you try this that you will too, and maybe see that this is something that you can adopt into your practice. So with that, thank you so much. We really enjoyed being here.
Thank you guys so much. This was awesome. I just have a couple of questions as I was watching. So
sure.
Was this mandatory for faculty, or are they all voluntary?
So
it's kind of mandatory.
Yeah, so if you wanted to teach online, it was mandatory, but we ended up having a large amount of professors wanting to take it, even though they didn't teach online, which was interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And is there, like, I guess, a certain time frame that they had to complete it within? Or you said you had a certain number of modules.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
We made it was an intense 2 weeks, but we didn't want to drag it out. This was another thing that I thought was interesting, is the original certification had a high dropout rate, and we went from a high dropout rate to almost no dropout rate. Like, the dropouts we had were right at the beginning when it first started, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I do this. But it wasn't like people who started who dropped out. I think almost no one dropped out who had started.
Nice. And how many hours would you say that they were supposed to spend in the course over the 2 week time period?
Like 15 to 20?
Yeah, more or less. It was optional to choose as many stops as they wanted to in terms of researching whatever they wanted. So some people did the minimum requirement and just did like 2 or 3, and then some people were like, let me do all of them. So I'm sure for those people, it was a lot more.
And just one more question. So when you were developing this, how much more time do you think it took you to develop this type of learning experience versus like a regular thing in Blackboard or another LMS, for example?
I would say a lot more. Just the videos alone, which was the part that I was the biggest part of doing. Like, we tracked down real students that wanted to be a part of it, that were outgoing and wanted to tell us their stories of their online experiences. And then we also had to do, a lot of research. I know Heidi did a ton of research to put together those pathways and finding those resources. So it did take a good amount of time to develop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope this is really informative for everyone else who's watching this video. And if you have questions, feel free to comment on the video below. We'll be posting this on our Facebook page so that we can have a short discussion, probably over the week time span when this is posted. So thank you.
Thank you.